Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring and the second installment in my advanced Heroquest one-shot. If you haven't checked out part 1, you might want to do that first, but if not, the short and the shorter of the plot is that our plucky dwarf and his two companions are lost in a greenskin lair and they need to get out. They have already made it through the first of 3 levels, but not without a cost. The brave sergeant has lost his leg in a mantrap, and the dwarf took a couple of knocks in a desperate battle with a fimir. But they're still alive and they're still in with a fighting chance. They need to find a quest room on this second level of the dungeon, which contains a staircase up to the final level. If they find another staircase after that, they have escaped the dungeon. Let's see how they get on. And here we are at the beginning of the second level of the dungeon. It should be noted that normally there would be nothing stopping the heroes from retracing their steps, going back downstairs to the previous level of the dungeon. As long as the heroes have accurately mapped it out, it's not a problem. However, for this particular scenario, our heroes are trying to get out. If they want to do that, they have to keep pushing forwards. If at any point they would have to go backwards, it's game over, they are lost in the darkness. But here we are at the beginning of a new exploration phase. And of course, our dwarf is going to move up to the junction to see what he can see. The wizard will go with him, the sergeant, not so much. Let's roll for the left corridor. It's a 2, that's 1 section. We roll for contents. That's 10, which means nothing. And then we roll for the end of the corridor. And that is 13, a T-junction. And now we roll for the right. 7, that's 2 sections. We roll for contents. That's a 5, that's nothing. And then a 14 is another T-junction. We roll for the Games Master, hoping for something less horrific than what happened last time. It's a 10, nothing happens. Our dwarf is going to move to the next T-junction. And we need to reveal some more of the dungeon, starting with the left-hand side of the junction. Just 1 corridor. We roll for contents. That's 15. Again, that's nothing. And at the end of the corridor, a left turn. Well, that doesn't look too promising. Let's see what's happening to the right. 7, that's 2 corridors. For contents. 15, that's nothing. And then for the end of the corridor, that's 16, a left turn. That completes our exploration, so we roll for the Games Master. It's a 10, nothing. We begin a new exploration phase, and we will take our dwarf all the way up to the end of the corridor, while his allies follow behind. Let's generate our new corridor. 4, that is 2 sections. We roll for contents. That's 24. That means wandering monsters. We have to generate some monsters from the wandering monster matrix. And it's a 12. As the light from our lanterns illuminates the corridor, it falls upon the scattered remains of 3 fallen warriors. Suddenly, they jolt into action, animated by some foul magic. We have to fight 3 skeletons. And we may as well place those as per the solo rules of 1 adjacent to our hero and then the other 2 adjacent to that originally placed skeleton. And now we roll for surprise. Heroes first. They get a 3. And the skeletons get a 4. The skeletons do ambush the heroes. That seems only fitting, that they would lurch into horrible unlife and get the first attack. Before we go into the combat phase, we will just generate the end of the corridor. And that's a 15. Another left turn. So first our monsters have to roll for reinforcements. They do not get any. And then all the bad things can start happening. The first skeleton will attack our dwarf hero. It has a weapon skill of 6, our dwarf has a weapon skill of 7, so the skeleton requires an 8 or better. That's a 3, so that's a miss. Our second skeleton will move to attack the dwarf. Remember, as soon as it steps into the death zone, it has to stop. And that means it cannot reach our wizard's apprentice this turn. 8 or more to attack our dwarf. And it's an 11, that is a hit, almost a critical. And the skeletons roll 3 damage dice. Each 9 or more will inflict a wound. That's 2 9s, that would kill our dwarf, and this is a perfect time to use a fate point. So we use a fate point and that removes all of that damage, so we still have 2 wounds remaining.
The final skeleton is going to move back slightly just to create a staggered death zone, making it as difficult as possible for our heroes to do anything. It's the hero's turn, but we have a problem. If we look at the skeleton's notes, we can see they are fearsome monsters. That means our dwarf is going to have to take a bravery test, and he's not very brave. The way a bravery test works is if at the start of your turn you are in an enemy's death zone and that enemy is fearsome, you have to roll to see if you cower. You have to roll equal to or less than your bravery stat. Our bravery is only 6. Let's see how this goes. That's a 12. That means we are cowering. In this situation, we are not allowed to attack. The only thing we are allowed to do is run. So, I guess we'll run. When you run, you first move your full movement value, which gets us to there. And then we roll a d12 and we add that to our movement stat. If we roll a 1, we trip over and go nowhere. And we've rolled a 6. None of our henchmen are in a death zone, so they can still move freely, but I think they're all going to back up as well. The sergeant to there, and the wizard to there. It's now time for the skeletons to activate, starting with a reinforcement roll. They really don't need any reinforcements. And they don't get them. And now all of our skeletons are going to pursue. So the first one moves 6 spaces, and then rolls to see if it goes any further. It does not, it stumbles. The second skeleton goes to there, and it can move an additional 11 spaces. But of course, once it gets to the wizard's death zone, it stops. It cannot attack this turn. And then our last skeleton gets an extra 2 movement. Well, this is going splendidly. It's the start of the hero phase, and the sergeant is going to try to free up the wizard by attacking and hopefully slaying that skeleton. The sergeant needs a 5 or more to hit the skeleton. And gets a 10, so he does hit, and he rolls 4 damage dice. Each 5 or more is a wound. That's a 9, a 7, and an 11. That's 3 wounds. Skeletons only have 3 wounds, so that is a kill. Even with only 1 leg, the sergeant schools Sleepy on how it's done. Next, our wizard's apprentice will move back to the dwarf, and while he is standing there, he is going to cast the only spell he knows, Flames of the Phoenix. He can only cast this spell once, as he only has the components to cast it once, but it fully restores the dwarf to his starting wounds value of 4. And then the dwarf is going to step forward to stand in front of the wizard. And that completes the hero phase. Skeletons roll for their reinforcements. Nothing this turn. We move adjacent to the sergeant. We need a 9 or more to hit. And it's an 8, so we miss. Our second skeleton now activates. Because there is already a skeleton in close combat with the sergeant, the second skeleton could actually move past him. There is no longer a death zone blocking his way. That death zone has been focused on the first skeleton. However, I think it makes sense for the second skeleton to dogpile the sergeant. Let's see if we can finish him off. Needing a 9. And that is a 12. So not only have we hit the sergeant, we get to take another shot at him. Rolling for our free attack. And that's an 8. So fortunately we miss with that second attack, but we have hit him once and we do roll 3 damage dice for that hit. Remember, our sergeant had to ditch his shield, so his toughness is now only 9. And we roll a 3, a 1 and a 6, so we are really fortunate there. That is 3 misses. It's the hero phase and it is time for Sleepy to take action. He's feeling a little bit braver now, so he is going to charge into the skeleton. Remember, we only have to take a bravery check if we are in the death zone at the start of our activation. So we move to attack and we need a 6 or better. That's an 11, almost a critical. So we have hit, we roll 2 damage dice. Skeleton has a toughness of 5, so every 5 or more is a wound. That's a 5 and a 9, that is 2 wounds. Unfortunately, skeletons have 3 wounds. This is why it's important to have a really good strength value, because it means you roll more damage dice, you have more chance of one-shotting those bad guys. Next, our sergeant has to make a bravery test. He has a bravery of 7, so a 7 or less he will pass. And he rolls a 5, so he continues to be our most valuable player. He needs a 5 to hit the skeleton, and he is going to hit the one that the dwarf has already targeted. And he rolls a 2. The moment I call him our most valuable player, he fluffs his attack. However, as I didn't use my fate point earlier, I have it now, and I can spend it to convert this miss into a hit. As I'm not sure my sergeant is going to last much longer, I am going to do that, which means we have successfully hit the skeleton and we get to roll for damage. That's a 10, a 5, a 7 and a 10, that is 4 wounds. That would have been enough to kill the fully healthy skeleton. As it is, we have completely decimated the one that the dwarf had already hurt. Our final skeleton activates. No reinforcements. He's just going to move to there because he wants to hit the dwarf. An 8 or more will do it. And he gets a 6. Our heroes activate. Let's start with our sergeant. He has to make a bravery test, which he fails abysmally. Having spent his fate, his gods have abandoned him. He is just going to cower there. Next, Sleepy will attempt a bravery test. 6 or less. And he gets a 5. He's going to lead by example, and he is going to attack this skeleton. A 6 will do it. And he gets a 10. 2 damage dice needing 5s. He gets a 6 and a 12. That 12 is a critical wound, which means we get to roll another damage dice. If we get another 5, we have killed the skeleton. Or re-killed it. And that's an 11. That is 3 wounds. The skeleton goes down. Yikes, that was tense. And what do we get for killing those skeletons? 60 gold coins. We are up to 200 gold coins total. And now we go back into an exploration phase. Let's see if we can find a way out of this place. Our dwarf moves 12 squares, our wizard chases him, and our sergeant hobbles along as well. We roll for the games master. Nothing happens. And in our next exploration phase, we're going to get down to the corner. Let's see what new horrors await us. First we roll for the corridor length. That's a 5, 2 sections. Next we roll for contents. Let's have some doors. 18. That's 1 door. We found a door. Fantastic. Let's put it just there. And now we roll for the end of the corridor. That's a 13, which is a T-junction. Right, let's roll for the GM phase and then we can get through that door. 7, nothing. Our dwarf moves to the door. Let's see what we can see. Feels like ages since I did this. We have found 11. That's another quest room. And I'm going to put it right there. We add the stairs and the treasure chest. Remember, Sleepy only has to make it up 3 levels. So once we've gone up this staircase, there will be 1 more level to the dungeon and then we are home free. Can we make it? I guess it all depends on what monsters we find. That's an 8. Unbelievably, that's 2 fimirs. We're going to put them there, just because. And we roll for surprise. Our heroes get an 11. The fimirs get an 11, so the heroes win. We get to move the fimirs 1 space. We are going to move them both back, like so. And then we take the first combat turn. We'll move the dwarf there. The wizard there, he might as well get involved, he's used his spell at this point. And Sergeant Stumpy will hold the door. The fimirs have a speed of 6, which isn't enough to get them into range. They could run, but there's not a lot of point. We're just going to reposition ourselves. Like so. Oh, and they should have rolled for reinforcements as well. Which they don't get. Now the heroes advance. The sergeant is going to move there, hoping to control the centre of the room with his death zones. Our dwarf advances and attacks, needing a 6 to hit. And it's only a 4, not good enough. Let's see what the wizard can do. He is squeezed in there to fight back to back with the sergeant. We have a weapon skill of 4, so we need an 8. And we do get an 8. Unfortunately, we are only attacking with a dagger. A 7 or more will cause 1 wound. And it's a 6, not good enough. The monsters roll for reinforcements. Nope. And now that femur at the top is going to attack the wizard's apprentice. Only needs a 5 or more. And gets a 5, that is a hit. 3 damage dice needing 4s or more. That's an 11, a 5 and an 8. That's 3 wounds. That would kill the wizard's apprentice. However, the Wizard's Apprentice does have a fate point. He is going to use that fate point to negate all of the damage from that attack. Unfortunately for him, the fimir gets a second attack. Again, only needing a 5. And getting a 10. As this is the fimir's second attack from its 2 attack special skill, it only rolls 2 damage dice this time. However, it rolls an 8 and a 12. That 12 is a critical, which means we get to roll an additional damage dice. And it's a 9. That's another 3 wounds. The Wizard's Apprentice has no more fate points left. There is nothing else the gods can do for him. Our Wizard's Apprentice is dead. And that's why a wizard should never fight anything in this game. Our second fimir is going to move around the edge of the room and attack the dwarf. Needs an 8 or more to hit. And rolls an 11. 9s or more will cause wounds. That's a 12, an 11, and a 10. The 12 is a critical wound that gets re-rolled. And that's another 11. That's 4 wounds. I have to spend my fate point because that would instantly kill me. Sleepy is out of fate points. Time for the heroes to activate, and I think our sergeant is going to move around and try to kill this fimir. He needs a 5 or more to hit. And he rolls a 4. Things are really not going our way. It's now our dwarf's turn, and you know what? He's going to run away. He holds no allegiance to this sergeant. He can see the staircase ahead. He's making a run for it. If we roll anything but a 1, we stand on the staircase and we are removed from the table as we go up to the next level. And we roll an 8. See you later, Sarge. Bye bye. It is now the turn of the Games Master. We roll for reinforcements. We get an 8, so that's nothing. The fimir next to the sergeant will attack, needing a 9. That's a miss. Second attack. Also a miss. Our other fimir will come to help, needing a 9. That's a miss. Second attack. That's also a miss. It's now the sergeant's turn. He's going to run as well. 3 spaces to there, and then we roll for running. And he rolls a 6, so he does make it onto the stairway. He's going to go and have a chat with Sleepy. Now, the rules never really talk about what happens to monsters and how they move between levels. I have always assumed that they decide to stay their post and the heroes get to advance to the next stage. And that means, against all the odds, Sleepy has made it to the 3rd level. If he can find one more stairway out, he is free. But he may have to hand in his badge at the Heroes Guild.